Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tado jayam udirayet Vede Ramayane chaiva purane bharate tatha davante cha matye cha hari sarvatra giyate Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yatkripa tamaham vande paramanandam madhavam Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevayam bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. Okay, so let's read the verse. Antarhitendriyārthāya Antarhitendriyārthāya haraye vihitāñjaliḥ haraye vihitāñjaliḥ sarva-bhūtamayo viśvam sarva-bhūtamayo viśvam sasarjedaṁ sasarjedaṁ sa pūrva-vat sasarjedaṁ sa pūrva-vat. Someone should repeat. Antarhitendriyārthāya haraye vihitāñjaliḥ sarva-bhūtamayo viśvam sasarjedaṁ sa pūrva-vat. Mataji. Antarhitendriyārthāya haraye vihitāñjaliḥ sarva-bhūtamayo viśvam sasarjedaṁ sa pūrva-vat. Antarhitendriyārthāya haraye vihitāñjaliḥ sarva-bhūtamayo viśvam sasarjedaṁ sa pūrva-vat. Okay. So let's go for the word by word. Antarhita, on the disappearance. Indriya-arthāya, unto the personality of Godhead, the objective of all senses. Haraye, unto the Lord. Vihita-añjaliḥ, in folded hands. Sarva-bhūta, all living entities. Mayaḥ, full of. viśvam, the universe. Sasarja, created. Idam, this. Sa, he, Brahmājī. Pūrva-vat, exactly like before. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. On the disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who is the object of transcendental enjoyment for the senses of devotees, Brahmā, with folded hands, began to recreate the universe, full with living entities, as it was previously. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is the object for fulfilling the senses of all living entities. Illusioned by the glaring reflection of the external energy, the living entities worship the senses instead of engaging them properly in fulfilling the desires of the Supreme. In Hari Bhakti Sudodaya 13.2, there is the following verse. Akshno phalam tvadrisha darshanam hi tano phalam tvadrisha Tano phalam tvadirsa gatra sangaha Jiva phalam tvadrissa kirtanam hi sudurlabha bhagavata hi loke. Translation is, O devotee of the Lord, the purpose of the visual sense is fulfilled simply by seeing you. And to touch your body is a fulfillment of bodily touch. The tongue is meant for glorifying your qualities, because in this world a pure devotee of the Lord is very difficult to find. Originally, the senses of the living entity were awarded for this purpose, namely to engage them in the transcendental loving service of the Lord or that of his devotees. But the conditioned souls, illusioned by the material energy, became captivated by sense enjoyment. Therefore, the whole process of God consciousness is meant to rectify the conditional activities of the senses and to re-engage them in the direct service of the Lord. Lord Brahma thus engaged his senses in the Lord by recreating the conditioned living entities to act in the recreated universe. This material universe is thus created and annihilated by the will of the Lord. It is created to give the conditioned soul a chance to act, to return home back to Godhead. And servants like Brahmājī, Naradaji, Vyasaji and their company become busy with the same purpose of the Lord, to reclaim the conditioned souls from the field of sense gratification and return them to the normal stage of engaging the senses in service of the Lord. Instead of doing so, that is, converting the actions of the senses, the impersonalists began to make the conditioned souls senseless and the Lord also senseless. That is improper treatment for the conditioned souls. The diseased condition of the senses may be treated by curing the defect, but not by uprooting the senses altogether. When there is some disease in the eyes may be cured to see properly. Plucking out the eyes is no treatment. Similarly, the whole material disease is based on the process of sense gratification, and liberation from the diseased condition is re-engagement of the senses to see the beauty of the Lord, hear his glories, and act on his account. Thus, Brahmājī created the universal activities again. So let's repeat the translation again. On the disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who is the object of transcendental enjoyment for the senses of the devotees, Brahma, with folded hands, began to recreate the universe full with living entities as it was previously. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitamena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Tadanti Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapatakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagarjatam Sagagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sagitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patithanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, thanks everyone for giving me an opportunity to talk on a verse on Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is a exalted literature for Paramahamsas, and I'm anyway no near than that, but I just take all your blessings so that I can speak some point which I could realize, or whatever my small realization, share for my own benefit and also for the benefit of people who are gathered here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Okay, so this chapter is about In the previous chapter, our Parikshit Maharaj was asking Sukadeva Goswami a lot of questions, and how this body came about, how the creation came about, what is the age of each yugas, and how much length is that. So like that, a lot of questions was put forward by Parikshit Maharaj, and Sukadeva Goswami was actually answering those questions in this chapter. And previous verses, we see that Sukadeva Goswami was saying about how the creation happened, and at that point he was saying the creator was the secondary creator actually is Lord Brahma, and how Lord Brahma came about, and once he was in the navel of the Lord, in the lotus feet stem which came from the navel of the Lord. So if he was in the lotus flower, and he was unknowing what to do when he was self-manifested there by Lord's will. So he doesn't know what to do. So he was just wondering what I should do. And then suddenly he saw some 2 syllables tapa in the darkness. And then internally Lord was inspiring him to take up the process of penances. Tapa means penance. And then the Lord was so pleased as he was doing penance for like 1,000 demigod years, I believe. It's like very, very long time. And Lord also says in previous one of the verses, like, tapa, penance is synonym to me. So he was so pleased by he was doing tapasya, and then he decided that he is the right person to do the creation, and then he started to give some instructions on how to create the material world, and how to do all his prescribed duties for Brahmājī. So then Brahmājī heard all that, and then after that Lord finished his instructions, and then Lord disappeared, and then Brahmājī started to work on his duty to create the material universe. So that's the verse we're in. On the disappearance of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who is object of transcendental enjoyment for the senses of the devotees, Brahma with folded hands began to recreate the universe. So he started this recreation, and Lord disappeared. So this verse is so beautiful, and the purport of Srila Prabhupada is astounding, and as usual, it's so illuminating and full of nectar of self-realization. So I would like to start before starting in this verse, hearing is very important, especially hearing Bhagavatam will actually, when we hear or come to the Bhagavatam classes regularly, as one of the verses says, all that is inauspiciousness in the heart gets cleansed, and we will be more cleansed of all the impurities in the heart, and we are able to understand the higher concepts and higher knowledge given in the Bhagavatam. So hearing is very important, and thank you for being in the class. So here, let us take the first line of the purport. Srila Prabhupada says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is the object for fulfilling the senses of all living entities. So basically, in this material world, the living entities are all, most of them, you can say 99%, except devotees, most of them are for sense gratification, are always engaged in how can I gratify my senses, and how can I get wealth, money, women and fame and like that. So but the point is that originally we all come from the spiritual world. We are part and parcel of the Lord, and we are engaged in devotional service there. But due to our minute independence, and also our desire to lord it over, like when we see in the spiritual world, everyone is centering Lord Krishna in the center and giving him all things and giving all worship, adoration, paraphernalia and thing, then somehow we think that Lord gets everything, why I'm not only the servant, when I will get it. So we have that small minute independence to lord it over, or to keep ourselves in center. So Lord, as a most affectionate father, he wants to also, you wanted to enjoy and enter like that, let me give you an opportunity. So for that, Lord created this material world, and then He sent us, and then to allow us to try to enjoy and see if really if we feel happy about that. Yeah, we will always give it a shot. In one of the lectures, Srila Prabhupada said, when he was his son was very young, maybe 1 or 2 years old, he was wanting to touch the running fan. So his friend was also nearby, and then Prabhupada was saying, don't touch. But his friend said, you know what, you just make the fan go slow and then make him to touch. So Prabhupada did that. He made the switch off the fan. It was a table fan which was running, and then the fan became slow, and then Prabhupada's son touched it, and then it made, he got hurt little bit. Then he immediately found that, oh, this is hurting. And then Prabhupada said, and then Prabhupada, and then his friend was saying, see, he will again never touch it. The same way, so we have been, we wanted to enjoy away from the Lord, so He created this material universe, and He put all the necessary things for us to be away from Him. And then He was trying to see, let's see whether you will be enjoying it or not. So that is what is the whole mood of Brahmājī, trying to create all these material things, material universes. So it's actually like a correctional facility. So a person is sent to a correctional facility. It also has all the facilities like food and everything. But the real meaning or the real goal of the correctional facility is not to give the facilities. The correctional facility is given so that at the end he will understand that what he did was wrong. He wanted to rectify it. So we are in such a correctional facility, and as long as we are not understanding that, and only by the mercy of the Vaishnavas and Prabhupada and these literatures, we at least get this glimpse. Otherwise, we are totally lost. If we go into our normal day-to-day world, who will talk like this? No one will talk about correcting ourselves, controlling the senses, becoming to talk about penances. What to say about fasting and all? It's really alien nowadays. At least in India, we have vestiges of Vedic culture. Vestiges means at the end there is something is there, because their great-great-grandfathers did some pious and some kind of tapasya. They know that this has to be done, but still they also don't know for why you have to do this. So overall, it's actually a correctional facility, and we have been given a chance to correct ourselves. And His Holiness Satchidananda Swami Maharaj, in the Living Name book, which is a book he written for the Japa reform, he says a very nice point. He says that beneath our desire for material opulence and enjoyment, for all kind of material opulences, like, whether it be house or whether it be money, job, or spouse, and any material enjoyment, beneath our desire for material opulence and enjoyment is the need for love, shelter, stability, appreciation, comfort, safety, etc. And this is second level. And underneath is our true need for Lord Krishna. He is the only one who can satisfy all our needs. So the problem is that we have all those desires and we wanted to satisfy one by one, but at the end, we really don't get satisfied. In fact, the other thing will happen. We get more frustrated and we try to attempt to, get more and more, try to improve our material conditioning. I don't know the verse, but Srimad-Bhagavatam says the beginning of the distress is the beginning of you trying to improve your material condition is the beginning of your distress. Okay, so I don't know the verse, sorry about that, but I can quote the verse. But yeah. The point is the beginning of you are trying to improve your material situation is the cause of your suffering. It's the beginning of your suffering. And the more you go deeper and deeper into improving your material situation, it is like you are in a prison house and you are trying to make your prison house more decorative. I want to make my prison cell to have this photo, that photo, this lamp, that lamp. What is the use? You are here for just the prison sentence, and this is not your house at all. But you wanted to make it more beautiful, so to be more graphic. So that was the analogy. But as Satchidananda Maharaj says, the real need is underneath of all these things is Krishna. So that means if we somehow or other able to come close to Krishna or get Krishna's relationship revived, then it will satisfy every other thing. It's like, if you water the root, then you automatically get nourishment in other parts of the leaves. So your other areas in your life, in material life, will be flourishing when our root is being satisfied. So that's one thing. And in the purport also, we have one verse from Hari Bhakti Sudodaya. It's a very nice verse, and it says that, O devotee of the Lord, the purpose of visual sense is fulfilled simply by seeing you, touching your body. Okay. Sorry, but I want to repeat it. O devotee of the Lord, the purpose of the visual sense is fulfilled simply by seeing you, and to touch your body is the fulfillment of the bodily touch. The tongue is meant for glorifying your qualities, because in this world, a pure devotee of the Lord is very difficult to find. So this verse actually speaks about, the glory of the devotee. Just by seeing a Vaishnava, your eyes are more, purified. Just by, glorifying a Vaishnava, your tongue gets purified. So the whole process, as I said, in the correctional facility, you will also be given certain tasks to do based on your whatever things you committed, So we have some kind of correctional tasks will be given so that you rectify whatever crime you have committed. The same way, here, we have a lot of, in the scriptures are given a lot of ways how to revive our original longing and original relationship with the Lord. And the best process given, in the Vedic literature is the devotional service. Devotional service to the Lord and devotional service to the devotees. So this verse speaks about a devotee. How do you even render service to the devotee? Because Krishna says, I am a devotee who worships me is not a devotee, but a devotee who worships my devotee, he is the real devotee. So as long as you are able to opportunity to serve Vaishnavas, and if you take that opportunity, you are in the right properly situated to get home and then correct yourselves. So that is, I also wanted to say about one more verse in Srimad-Bhagavatam 9:24-18-20, where Maharaj Ambarish, how he engage all his senses. Savai mana Krishna padara vindayo vachamsi vaikunta gunanu varnane. So in that verse, it says, Prabhupada gives the purport, Maharaj Ambarish was always meditating, like his mind is always meditating on Lord Krishna. His legs are always used to go to the place of worship. His mouth, his tongue is used to chant the glories and to eat prasadam. And then to his sense of touch is used to embrace the devotees. So that way, our correctional task in this material world is to engage all our mind and senses in the service of the Lord. So that's what one of the main themes where Prabhupada was starting the purport. The Supreme Personality is the object for fulfilling the senses of all living entities. So our object is fulfilling senses is to fulfill the sense of the Lord and also the devotees. So that's one of the important things I wanted to share. And also, if you see, Lord Brahmājī, even though he was the first living entity, based on the knowledge given by Lord Krishna, he immediately started engaging in devotional service. What is that? He thought that, okay, my Lord has given me the task or service to create the material universe, so that is my engagement in the service of the Lord, so let me engage in creating it. So if you see, Lord Brahma is the foremost, first living entity, and he exemplified by doing everything for Lord's service. So if we can learn this from Lord Brahma. And in the other next line, Prabhupada says in the purport, illusioned by the glaring reflection of the external energy, the living entities worship the senses instead of engaging them properly in fulfilling the desires of the Supreme. So here Prabhupada says that the living entity is illusioned by the external energy, by the glaring reflection of the external energy. So if you see the Lord's energy, there are three types, right? One is spiritual, one is external, one is you can say material, you can say spiritual, and there is something called marginal. That means the spiritual, the world and the entities, they are all spiritual, and here people and the creation of the, not people, all the non-living entities are all material matters. But there is something called marginal. That means we living entities are marginal because we are, sometimes we might be in the spiritual consciousness. For example, when you do the devotional service, or when we are with the devotees, or even when we are in the class, our consciousness is fully in the spiritual atmosphere, in the spiritual relationship with the Lord. We have some relation, so we are currently in spiritual. But when we go out of the temple, when we are in our home and when we are in our work, we never know, because based on our consciousness, we might be totally material, we might be totally forgetful of Krishna, right? So we might be in between these two. So that's why we're called marginal. So we living entities are put in these correctional facilities so that we kind of, recondition ourselves to always be in the spiritual energy and not be in the material energy. So that's one thing, as Prabhupada was saying about talking about external energy. So we need to somehow or other, ena kena prakarena, somehow or other, we need to keep ourselves in the spiritual energy. And for this point, Srimad-Bhagavatam 112, Dharma projita kaitavatra paramad nirmatsaranam. So this verse says that the real religious religion, religion expounded by Srimad-Bhagavatam, the real religion completely rejects materially motivated religious activities. So this verse says that materially, sometimes we see that people just go for, to the Lord for money and other material things. So Srimad-Bhagavatam completely rejects it. So in this verse, the word dharma is very, very apt, and it relates to this verse, because the dharma of the living entity. So what is the mean by dharma? Dharma is the constitutional position. So dharma of the salt is to be salty. Dharma of the water is to be liquidity. So in the same way, what is the real dharma of the living entity? The dharma of the living entity is to be a servant of the Lord. So when a person understands his dharma as constitutional position, how he will understand this dharma? Either by coming in contact with the devotees or with the literatures like this is the only way someone comes to know about this dharma. So Prabhupada says in that purport that people artificially think they're masters. For example, if I'm a husband and in my house I will think I'm the master, and my wife and children are my my subordinates or my servants. But the reality is I am the real servant, because everyone they look after me for providing and protect and this protection and all those things. So the reality, if you see that, is I serve them more than they kind of serve me. So but this is an illusion that everyone has, that I am the master and there are people around me and I need to extract things from them. But the reality is we are the real servants, and that is our constitutional position. And also Srimad-Bhagavatam promulgates the idea of spontaneously oneness and difference. So that means we living entities are part and parcel of the Lord. That is the oneness. And at the same time, we living entities are actually separate and we serve the Lord. So at once a person understands this philosophy, a person understands this point of dharma, what is his constitutional position, and also understands this point of simultaneously one and different. So that means at this point the person will be in a position to know that no, I'm not separate, I'm not the Lord, I'm just a part and parcel of the Lord, and my constitutional position is to serve. So when we have that, when we have this understanding, and immediately when we come to this understanding, Prabhupada says in the purport that all the threefold miseries vanquish. It's very powerful when Prabhupada says in the purport that just immediately when a person understands this, I am one and simultaneously one part and parcel of the Lord, and also I'm a servant. When he understands this concept, then he comes to the constitutional position that no, I am not a master, I am a servant of the Lord. And once he is coming to the position of a servant of the Lord, then he acts accordingly, and immediately Prabhupada says the threefold miseries actually cease to exist for that person. So this way, now we understood, who we are and where our senses should be, focusing on. So these are the points we saw till now. And next thing is, as we devotees know, when we come to Krishna consciousness, we get this philosophy, fairly quickly. Maybe, few months' time also. When we come to the classes, we get to know, okay, I'm a servant, I'm not the master, and all these points. We know that, but still we get an illusion, right? We get covered over. We know it, but still we continue to act as the Lord. So how that happens then? So next thing is, how does one get illusion? Even though he knows this point and this philosophy, sometimes he gets illusion. So in Srimad-Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 11-17, Jadabharata instructs King Raghuguna on this nice point of how we get illusion. He says, this uncontrolled mind is the greatest enemy of the living entity. If one neglects it or gives it a chance, it will grow more and more powerful and will become victorious. Although it is not factual, it is very strong. It covers the constitutional position of the soul. O King, please try to conquer this mind by the weapon of service to the lotus feet of the spiritual master and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Do this with great care. So in this verse, now we see that Jadabharata says that the mind conquers, or the mind covers the constitutional position of the soul. So the constitutional position of the soul, we know that we are a servant, but what gets covered over, by which it gets covered over, it is because of the mind. So the mind is very powerful, and it has the ability to cover our constitutional position. Once it is covered, then we immediately act as we are masters, and immediately we want to become the enjoyers. Immediately we wanted to see how we can exploit the material energy and how we can get pleasure from here, and that from there the fall down starts, and then we get down and down in consciousness, and then when we hit the rock bottom, then we wake up, and then we come to senses and say, oh no, this is really not giving me pleasure or happiness, so I need to correct myself. Again we come back to that knowledge, So and also in one of the Bhagavad Gita verse 14:26, it says that Mam choya avyabhacharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitya itan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So this mind which covers this constitutional position is, it is acting because of the three modes of material nature, because it is entangled the modes. Because we have the three modes, Rajaguna, Sattva-guna, Rajaguna, and Tamaguna. So once the mind, when it comes in contact with material energy, it gets a lot of varied transformations, and and finally it covers our constitutional position. And how we can overcome this mind's effect on the three modes, as the Bhagavad Gita verse says, by engaging in devotional service, at once you transcend the three modes. So once you transcend the three modes, then you can always be conscious of your constitutional position as the servant, and you can be steady. So that's how Bhagavad Gita says. And also, Bhagavad Gita says in 6.5 that one must deliver himself with the help of the mind and not degrade himself. The mind is a friend of the conditioned soul and also his enemy. So the main point is that we need to be very careful on how we are dealing with the mind, and we need to properly control the mind. So how do we control the mind? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that the controlling of the mind now is possible by suitable practice and detachment. So what is a suitable practice? A suitable practice is the practice of Krishna consciousness, like chanting, hearing. All those things will help you to control the mind. And also Krishna says both practice and detachment. So what is detachment here? So when detachment means detachment from the mind's thoughts, the thoughts arising from the mind. As His Holiness Varsana Swami said, one of the classes in here, we can see those thoughts as passing clouds and we be detached from that thought. And then you see the thought as passing cloud, and then once you detach from any thought, that power of the thought comes down. And the more you attach to the thought, that means contemplation. And Gita also says, from contemplation arises, lust. From lust arises, anger. So like that. So you need to, first and foremost, how to control the mind is just to detach itself and let the thoughts pass by. And then you just see it as an observer. And then when you're detaching your mind, the mind will be empty. So we cannot keep the mind empty. We need to fill the mind with Krishna conscious thoughts or Krishna conscious activities. So that's why both by practice and by detachment we can control the mind. And it's not a very simple task, as Krishna himself said. I understand this task is very difficult. So we should not get discouraged if we are failing, but we need to keep trying it again and again by sportsmanship way. We should not feel that we are failing. So this way, by repeated practice, we can, and detachment, we can control the mind. I would like to end where Prabhupada said in the purport that he was saying how other than devotees try to control the mind, the impersonalists. Prabhupada was saying that impersonalists deny both the sense of the devotee, senses of us, and senses of the God. He says God is impersonal. He doesn't have eyes, he doesn't have mouth, he doesn't have limbs, it's just a light. So they say in that way they are trying to see impersonally, and then they are trying their own way to control the mind. But Prabhupada was putting an argument that to solve the mind's problem is not to deny it. It is as good as saying that in order to cure the eyes, pluck the eyes out. Then there will be no problem with eye problem. So that is not the real solution. So the real solution is to engage in Krishna consciousness, in devotional service, and try our best to. We know we are all not perfect. We are not, knowledgeable in any way fully. So we have to honest to be with us where we stand, and we need to sincerely try in whatever way we can, in whatever place we are, and then by Lord's mercy, we might get the empowerment to control the mind and senses. And especially in one of the verses, I don't know the verse, but I'm just trying to say the point, is where it says the way to clear our heart's accumulated anarthas is to serve the lotus feet of a pure devotee. So if you have the opportunity somewhere, you will find a pure devotee, and if you just serve the lotus feet of pure devotee, automatically all the anarthas in the heart gets cleansed. And it is a very wonderful way. If we have that opportunity to do, we should try that, to take full advantage of it. So I think this summarizes the points given in purport. I'll end here. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you so much for preparing nicely and all the nice points. I really appreciate. I will start with this last point about detachment, that how to control the mind by the constant practice, which is easy for me to understand. But the detachment, what does it, Krishna, really mean here? What does it mean here by detachment from the results? You said detachment from our thoughts, not... What does the detachment, that we try, and what does the detachment
mean? Yeah.
You mentioned about the thoughts, right?
Right.
Letting, I think
Yeah. Yes,
did I miss anything else?
Yeah, I was trying to say what His Holiness Varsana Swami Maharaj said. he was saying that in order to control the thoughts, it's like a mad elephant, and it's really like an elephant, because the thoughts will be so strong sometimes you cannot resist it also. It's so difficult. So Maharaj was saying that detachment means detach also literally. Literally means the word. Detach yourself from the thoughts itself. Like, for example, if someone is insulting you, you can take it in two ways. One, you can react to it, you can shout at him, and second, you just can ignore it. So detachment means ignore the thoughts. Ignore it. If some thought comes, you just ignore it.
Five with those thoughts.
Yes.
It's so strongly that even detach, it's like further back. First we even to notice, because it's like we merge, at least like almost like merge with it.
Mm-hmm.
So the first would be like step
Yes.
back, right?
Yes.
At least
That
I'm
is
not
means-
lost that thought, and then detachment is even another step to me.
Right.
But to even observe that this is, because it's just so strong, this is just like I think all these things, and it's just like, yes, that's what it is, right?
Yes, Mataji. Actually, you said the proper word there. Observe. When I said detach, it means observe. Means when you observe, then you are not attaching to that. Then you cannot observe it. Right? If you're into it, then you're already into it. When you observe means you're already detached. You are from a distance. You are seeing. That's what I think that means. Detachment means you separate yourself and observe it. So for that observation, we first need to have the knowledge that we are not the mind. Yes. Realization. Yeah. Realization. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Right,
Yes, ma'am.
because, knowledge, if it was true, anyway. Maharaj says, Vrishana Maharaj, that the knowledge needs to descend into the heart. Anyway, it's...
But we have to start somewhere. We have to start somewhere. So, as I said, yeah, we have. I have heard these points many times, but still we get covered over. We get illusioned. So why that happens? So that's why I thought, what we go through as a person, when we have all these thoughts and things, what we go through and what we can do also, because everything is given in scriptures. What is the reason why we have the suffering? Why it is internally? What are the subdivisions of what happens and how we can overcome? Everything is there, but either we don't still have the knowledge fully, or even if we have the knowledge, maybe we don't have much realization, as you said. Determination, yeah.
It's a gradual process. The sword of discriminating knowledge, coupled with practice and constant thought, coupled with the Lord's mercy, coupled with the passage of time,
Right.
coupled with our desire to want to understand and appreciate and actually become that.
Right.
It's like a whole bunch of different things. I remember when I was a young devotee, the very first thing I kind of started out with was, I'm not this body, I'm not this body. So I would focus on that daily, and I would think, what can I do to prove that to myself?
Right.
I remember one time I was cutting a tree branch with a chainsaw, and I accidentally nicked my leg with the chainsaw.
Oh.
And it was just a small cut, but it was bleeding pretty good. And I thought to myself, okay, well, I can either make a big deal about this, ow, 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 and take a whole bunch of time and take it easy and stop working for the day, or I can just patch it up really quick and go back to serving Krishna to prove to myself and to him that I believe that I'm not my body. So that was one example of the things that you can practically do. Also, I used to, I remember learning early on that, okay, if you really believe you're not your body, then if someone hurls an insult against you, about your body, like you don't look good today, or your hair's messed up, or anything at all having to do with your material body, well, let me take the opportunity to not be offended at all by such comments, to completely shrug them off, to understand and think to myself, well, it's a good thing I'm not my material body, because maybe I would be upset. But since I am not my material body, why would I be upset by any kind of comments, derogatory comments about my material body? So there's some things that we can do early on to practice, and those are the kinds of things I used to do. But, studying, hearing, and then putting into practice bits and pieces and realizing these things gradually over time. Krishna gives us greater and more realizations. And that's how it all kind of comes about. It's usually not a sudden thing that you're suddenly there. No, it takes a lot of practice and a lot of meditation and a lot of study and a lot of mercy.
Yes.
So that's what I got to say about that.
Yeah, very nice point, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
What would you tell me about how to understand this detachment?
Well, that comes through knowledge. I think that probably one of the most amazing things that I did in the last 20 years was to hear the Srimad-Bhagavatam and various other scriptures, but in particular the Srimad-Bhagavatam. I heard it a bunch of times all the way through, the translations, because you can hear that on YouTube. Amal Bhaktadas from California very beautifully read so many books, and I heard that book so many times, and it gives you that understanding of what detachment is all about. And here it is in a nutshell. The Srimad-Bhagavatam gave me this understanding. We are to not accept not the single slightest little thing of the material energy as having to do with us at all. We're not the single slightest little thing should we be ultimately concerned about and want to hold on to. Because it has nothing to, the material energy has absolutely nothing to do with us. Not a single slight little thread of it has anything to do with us at all. We're going to leave it all behind when we go to the spiritual world, and we won't even be thinking about it at all. So why take it so importantly now? This is what the Srimad-Bhagavatam gives you. It teaches you that. It helps you to understand that in a really deep, meaningful way. So detachment can be really, really appreciated and understood by hearing that sort of discriminating knowledge, the ability to cut off our illusory identification with the material energy. Comes about through knowledge, realization, purification, the Lord's mercy, practice, all these things, gradually.
Regarding that material energy, Prabhu, I was one point I didn't touch up. Like Prabhupada said, the purports of, I believe, Srimad-Bhagavatam 10:125. He says that Lord's energy, same energy, as the electricity, it can be used as a heating element. The same electric energy can be used for the air conditioner, right, to cool. But the same place, right? The energy is the same. So in the same way, when we have the material energy, puts us into, gives us into forgetfulness of Krishna here. But when we go to spiritual world, the same energy will help us to engage more in Krishna service. So I just wanted to thought to share that. But nice points, Prabhuji. Yeah, especially discriminating knowledge. The knowledge will act as help us to cut all the illusion. Not hard.
We know it. I'm not the servant. I'm the servant. And then you said we get illusion. It almost seems like we know it, but because it's quite, or sometimes could be, again, not much realized. So it's not that we are some illusion in the sense that we still know it because we hear it all
Right.
over, we read it all
Right.
over. But it's so deeply ingrained in us, being here from who knows, thousands of lifetimes,
Right.
that even though we know it theoretically, deeply there, we
Mhm.
just still want to be. We have the tendency so
Right.
deeply there to be the
Right.
master and the Lord and
Mhm.
enjoy and control that it's just the pull is there,
Right.
and it takes a lot. A lot to
Yes.
reverse it, right?
So-
A lot of all this different you're hearing and chanting